Today is the Tuesday of Holy Week. I'd like to read for you the scriptures assigned for this day. These will be from the Message translation. Listen, far-flung islands. Pay attention, faraway people. God put me to work from the day I was born. The moment I entered the world, he named me. He gave me speech that would cut, penetrate. He kept his hand on me to protect me. He made me his straight arrow and hid me in his quiver. He said to me, "You are my dear servant Israel, through whom I'll shine." But I said, "I've worked for nothing. I've nothing to show for a life of hard work. Nevertheless, I'll let God have the last word, and I'll let him pronounce his verdict." And now, God said, this God who took me in hand from the moment of birth to be his servant, to bring Jacob back home to him, to set a reunion for Israel, what an honor for me in God's eyes, that God should be my strength. He says, "But that's not a big enough job for my servant, just to recover the tribes of Israel, merely to round up the strays. I'm setting you up as a light for all the nations, so that my salvation becomes global." God, the Redeemer of Israel, the Holy One of Israel, says to the despised one, kicked around by the nations, slave labor to the ruling class, "Kings will see, get to their feet, the princes too, and then fall on their faces in homage, because the Lord, who has faithfully kept his word, the Holy One of Israel, has chosen you." And then from Psalm 71, "I run for dear life to God. I'll never live to regret it. Do what you do so well. Get me out of this mess and up on my feet. Put your ear to the ground and listen. Give me space for salvation. Be a guest room where I can retreat. You said your door was always open. You are my salvation, my vast granite fortress. My God, free me from the grip of wicked, from the clutch of bad and bully. You keep me going when times are tough, my bedrock, God, since my childhood. I've hung on you from the day of my birth, the day you took me from the cradle. I'll never run out of praise. Many gasp in alarm when they see me, but you take me in stride. Just as each day brims with your beauty, my mouth brims with praise. Don't turn me out to the pasture when I'm old, or put me on the shelf when I can't pull my own weight. My enemies are talking behind my back, watching for their chance to knife me. The gossip is, God has abandoned him. Pounce on him now, for no one will help him. Lord, don't just watch from the sidelines. Run to my side. My accusers, make them lose face. Those out to get me, make them look like idiots, while I stretch out reaching for you, and daily add praise to praise. I'll write the book on your righteousness. Talk up your salvation all day long, never running out of good things to say or to write. I come in the power of the Lord God. I post signs marking his right of way. in Paul's first letter to the Corinthian church, chapter 1. The message that points to Christ on the cross seems like sheer silliness to those hell-bent on destruction. But for those on the way to salvation, it makes perfect sense. This is the way God works, and most powerfully as it turns out. For it's written, I'll turn conventional wisdom on its head and expose so-called experts as crackpots. So, where can you find someone truly wise, truly educated, truly intelligent in this day and age? Hasn't God exposed it all as pretentious nonsense? Since the world and all its fancy wisdom never had a clue when it came to knowing God, the Lord in his wisdom took delight in using what the world considered dumb, preaching of all things, to bring those who trust him into the way of salvation. While Jews clamor for miraculous demonstrations and Greeks go in for philosophical wisdom, we go right on proclaiming Christ, the crucified. Jews treat this like an anti-miracle, and Greeks pass it off as absurd. But to us, who are personally called by God himself, both Jew and Greek, Christ is God's ultimate miracle and wisdom all wrapped up in one. Human wisdom is so tiny, so impotent, next to the seeming absurdity of God. Human strength can't begin to compete with God's weakness. Take a good look, friends, at who you were when you were called into this life. I don't see many of the best and brightest among you, not many influential, not many from high society families. Isn't it obvious that God deliberately chose men and women that the culture overlooks and exploits and abuses? Chose these nobodies to expose the hollow pretensions of the somebodies. That makes it quite clear that none of you can get by with blowing your own horn before God. Everything that we have, right thinking, right living, a clean slate, and a fresh start, comes from God by the way of Jesus Christ. That's why we have the saying, if you're going to blow your own horn, blow a trumpet for God. And then from the Gospel of John, chapters 12 and 16. There were some Greeks in town who had come up to worship at the feast. They approached Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee. Sir, we'd like to see Jesus. Can you help us? Philip went and told Andrew, and Andrew and Philip together told Jesus. Jesus answered, Time's up. The time has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Listen carefully. Unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground, dead to the world, it's never any more than just a grain of wheat. But if it is buried, it sprouts and reproduces itself many times over. In the same way, anyone who holds on to life, just as it is, destroys that life. But if you let it go, reckless in your love, you'll have it forever, real and eternal. If any of you wants to serve me, then follow me. Then you'll be where I am, ready to serve at a moment's notice. The Father will honor and reward anyone who serves me. Right now, I am storm-tossed. What am I going to say? Father, get me out of this? No. This is why I came in the first place. I'll say, Father, put your glory on display. A voice came out of the sky. I have glorified it, and I'll glorify it again. The crowd listened and said, It's thunder. Others said, An angel has spoken to him. But Jesus said, The voice didn't come for me. It came for you. At this moment, the world is in crisis. Now Satan, the ruler of this world, will be thrown out. And I, as I am lifted up from the earth, will attract everyone to me and gather them around me. He put it this way to show how he was going to be put to death. Voices from the crowd answered, We heard from God's law that the Messiah lasts forever. How can it be necessary, as you put it, that the Son of Man will be lifted up? Who is this Son of Man? Jesus said, For a brief time still the light is among you. Walk by the light you have so darkness doesn't destroy you. If you walk by darkness, you don't know where you're going. As you have the light, believe in the light. Then the light will be within you, shining through your lives, and you will be children of light. I've told you these things to prepare you for rough times ahead. They're going to throw you out of the meeting places. There'll even come a time when anyone who kills you will think they're doing God a favor. They will do these things because they never really understood the Father. I've told you these things so that when the time comes and they start in on you, you'll be well warned and ready for them. I didn't tell you this earlier because I was with you every day, but now I'm on my way to the one who sent me. Not one of you has asked, "Where are you going?" Instead, the longer I've talked, the sadder you've become. So let me say it again, this truth. It is better that I leave. If I don't leave, the friend won't come. But if I go, I'll send him to you. And when he comes, he'll expose the error of this godless world's view of sin, righteousness, and judgment. He'll show them that their refusal to believe in me is their basic sin, that righteousness comes from above, where I am with the Father, out of their sight and control, and that judgment takes place as the ruler of this godless world is brought to trial and convicted. After having heard the scriptures for this Tuesday in Holy Week, I'd like to play for you today as well as tomorrow a setting of Psalm 51, that great psalm of lament of King David after he had been accused by Nathan of his infidelity with Bathsheba. An Italian composer, Gregorio Allegri, wrote it in 1638. It was meant to be sung only once a year, only on Good Friday, only in the Sistine Chapel.
Christ.